Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. What role does our faith and religion play in today's society, and more importantly, in the first responder sector? Do you think that faith is uniquely equipped to provide us with the support, comfort, and sense of strength and purpose, or maybe even an emotional and mental strength needed for high-pressure professions? My guest on the podcast today is Simon Hewitt, a retired firefighter who dedicated over 31 years to serving others in the fire service. Beyond his extensive career, Simon has become a beacon of faith and hope, serving as a chaplain and leader of Firefighters For Christ International. In our conversation today, Simon opens up about his remarkable journey from navigating the pressures of his profession to overcoming a rare and life-threatening cancer. Through these experiences, Simon found a sense of purpose and strength in his faith, using it not only to support himself, but also to inspire and guide others, particularly his fellow first responders and firefighters. His story highlights the profound role faith can play in building resilience, offering solace during adversity, and fostering community. Now, this is a very different chat for us on the podcast because I personally am not particularly religious. However, I've seen many times how people can take a massive amount of strength in their darkest moments as they reach out for some strength and support from a greater power, for help. And if you, like me, are a little bit undecided, then I think you'll take a lot from our conversations today with Simon. I really enjoyed having him on the podcast. We have a really good, healthy balance and discussion about religion and faith and the role it plays in our world today. I know you're going to enjoy this one, and I'll see you on the other side.
I know what it's like. I'm frustrated when people don't turn up on time, but
we got away with it. Don't worry about it. We'll improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's what it's all about. How's life in your world?
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you.
What's good about it?
What's good about it?
Yeah. What are you grateful for today?
I'm still here. I'm still vertical. I'm still alive. And I can still do, within reason, what I want to do, considering my last 2 years.
Good. It's honest.
I think it's just sharing my faith with the journey I've been on over the last 2 years with cancer and my involvement with Firefighters For Christ. I just am passionate about supporting firefighters because we all know firefighters struggle and there's issues in people's lives. But I don't think that anything happens in life for an accident. I don't think I had cancer for an accident. I had it for a reason, and I believe that this has opened up doors for me to share my faith and also to have compassion and also empathy with other firefighters and other people who are struggling in their lives, whatever they're struggling with.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Renowned for innovation, quality and reliability, Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the fire ground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show. I want us to start today with a quote that one of my good friends, Zach Blackledge, actually got tattooed on himself just before I did, because I want to get it tattooed on myself. Do you know what amor fati means?
No.
Love of fate.
Okay.
Or love of one's fate, so it's Latin. It's referenced a lot in Stoicism, and it's something that really just came screaming to the forefront of my mind before we started recording when you said that nothing happens by accident. Mm-hmm. Talk to me around faith, fate, destiny, and kind of how that folds itself into your personal journey and also perhaps your journey with religion.
Okay, well, I've been brought up in a Christian home all my life, so I had no massive experience like some people do, but that set the foundation for me in my life. When I had cancer in 2022, to me that was an eye-opener. I was diagnosed with myxoma peritonei, that's cancer of the peritoneum, and that was the beginning of 2022. February 22, I was given a telephone call because I'd given some blood tests, and they said, it looks as though you've got pancreatic cancer. I thought, wow, that's a one-way journey. Mm-hmm. That's a face-to-face conversation, not one over the telephone. Cut a long story short, I had the operation in July, 14th of July, and I was in hospital for 8 weeks. And that taught me a massive lesson. Since that operation, I have had to learn patience. Now, I sent you a PDF about my journey. I don't believe for myself that, as I said earlier on, things happen by accident. Things happen for a purpose. And a verse in the Bible from Isaiah 64 verse 8. It says, we are the clay, you are the potter, that's God, is a potter, and we are the work of his hands. So whatever God wants to mold me into, it's for his glory and his honor. And what that's done for me, it's given me hope, because I know that it's done for a reason. It's given me an opportunity to have empathy with people. It's opened up conversations, and it's allowed me to journey with people. I've got that hope because as a Christian, I know that whatever happens to me, I've got an eternity in heaven. So it's beyond our comprehension. You know, there'll be no more sickness, no more tears, no more death. That's for eternity, forever and ever. What I'm going through now is a struggle. I struggle daily with my medical situation. As a result of my cancer and the operation, I've got a stoma bag. And a stoma bag is an external bowel, which I just have to be careful of. I was on the way to a football match last night, and on the way it started to fill up, and I thought to myself, I need to find a toilet quickly, otherwise there'll be an explosion and I'll be all a mess before I go to the football match. And also the other was a stomach, which was cut in half because the tumour was attached to the stomach. So I have a daily reminder and a daily hurdle to climb. But I know that God is watching over me and gives me the strength to persevere, to carry on, and to live one day at a time. I read the Bible daily, and there's a verse that came out to me this morning that every day is special, and he gives us mercies, he gives us strength to deal with today. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. Because, you know, we have issues today. Tomorrow's tomorrow. Yes, we plan, because one thing that I am very conscious of is the fact that we plan for the future. Now, you've seen it as a firefighter. I've seen it. One incident that I went to in my early days of a firefighter. I went to a road traffic collision. There's an articulated lorry and trailer parked in the lay-by of a dual carriageway, and we were called to an accident whereby a car had just driven straight into the back of the trailer, and half the car was buried underneath that trailer. The driver, I think, didn't know what was happening. He was instantly taken away. But what caused me to reflect was there was 2 booster seats in the back of that car at that time. One assumes he was a family man. One assumes he said goodbye to his family, expecting to come back that evening. He didn't. And I think sometimes we take life for granted. So, as I say, the fact is that, yes, we plan, but as firefighters, we all know that things come across our path that we have no control over. And I think what gives me hope and faith and comfort is that there is a God who protects me and is in control and will give you the strength. He doesn't put you through anything that you face on your own. He always helps you.
I think this is one of the reasons, one of many reasons, I was really interested to speak to you today, because you and I have crossed paths on a few occasions,
Indeed.
which I'm very grateful for, and I always remember the times that we do. I've always wrestled with religion. personally. I don't inherently believe myself religious. I have got a Christian name, and my family is from a Christian context. I suppose one of the things that concerns me about religion, and concerns is, I'm not sure I'm picking the right words there, but I'm a big one about your internal locus of control. I often say to people with the fire service thing, like, no one's coming to save you. And I say that to the firefighters, not as in the members of the public. Of course, we're coming to save them. But I think, like, don't rely on someone coming to save you. And want to map that template over onto our conversation today. That believing that you're in control of your own destiny means you've recognized your internal locus of control. You know, it means you take responsibility for your thoughts and your actions and their outcomes. And by thinking this, I believe it gives me a great deal of personal accountability, a great deal of drive. There's an old, I forget the speaker, might have been, it wasn't Tony Robbins, although he reused it, might have been Jim Rohn, where, and you may have heard it, I apologise, I'm never going to, well, we have a trusted relationship, so it's a joke. And there's a man walking down big long track, and he comes across a home. It's a beautiful home with an absolutely stunning garden. And he sees the man tending the garden, and he calls him over. And he says, "Sir, the Lord has blessed your garden. What a beautiful garden." And he says, "Well, thank you very much." He says, "But with all due respect, you should have seen what it was like when the Lord had it all to himself." And within that facetious joke, I think to myself, there's a strength you can take from walking a path with someone, whether that be your religious belief, a god or a deity, or, again, my terminology is not fantastic, I apologise, but there's a strength to be found from that, because it also makes you feel like you're not alone. I think we all fear dying alone.
Yeah.
I certainly did.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons we have children, and we like to think that something lives beyond us after we're no longer here. And I think in our darkest hour, including myself, even if I say I'm not religious, in my darkest hour, I will probably reach out to something. I will probably reach out to someone.
Yes.
For help, for a cry of forgiveness, for all the many things. And I'm a recovering addict, so there's many things I'm not proud of. I try to live my life better every day. But even in terms of my addiction, I didn't expect anybody else to do that for me. And had I have, and I don't know, you can never split test life in retrospect, can you? But had I have not taken full accountability for my actions, I don't know that I would be here today. I don't know. So help me unpick my waffle of words there. Okay. What does any of that say anything?
It does.
Okay. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
Yes, we are all responsible for our own actions. There are consequences. We're given wisdom. We're given a mind to think rationally. You know, within the fire service, the fire department, you're trained to pick up signs and signals and everything else. If you deviate from that, then obviously complications and injury and everything else could occur. So yes, we have control, and I believe that we have been given wisdom, and the wisdom comes from God, but it comes from experience as well. You know, we learn from experience what not to do and what to do. And yes, I think everyone looks for something to fill that void, that empty void. You're right. Now, people would turn to faith, various faiths. People would turn to other things, perhaps alcohol, perhaps drugs. We lost a dear friend who's 61 in January from cancer, and the funeral was about 2 weeks ago, I think. And the husband Brian and the kids, they're distraught. They've lost someone who was part of their life, and they have to pick up pieces. But yes, we have responsibility, even in the earth. We have responsibility to care for the earth. We've abused that care.
I'm not sure we really take that one. I think we're in a very disposable mindset at the minute.
Yeah, very, very much so. But we're here to create an environment which is compatible to the way God left us to have it. But unfortunately, we've abused it through selfishness and greed and so forth. But yes, you are right. Everyone looks for something. When there's disaster, let's take 9/11 for instance. People turn to a faith. That cross sets.
People also question their faith during disasters. They
do. And some people turn away from their faith because they say, if this is a God of love, what's happening? Ground Zero, there was the cross. I've never been to Ground Zero. Have you been to Ground Zero?
Not yet. I'm going there next year.
There's a cross, and that cross was identified in the rubble. And that formed a significant focal point for the rescuing and also for the recovery. And that was there for something like 7 months. But every day they had a service there. They had a mass. Now, I've been told that there were 3 crosses. But when they did the salvage, they didn't understand the significance of the 3 crosses, so they took the 1 cross. But that gave hope. And, that helped people overcome and deal with the emotions that they face. But we're all individuals, we're all human, and we'll all react and respond in a different way. Just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean to say I'm going to fail, doesn't mean to say that I'm going to always have a positive attitude, because you have your highs and lows. But in the back of my mind, I know that as a man of faith, there is someone who's ultimately caring for me. Yes, he gives you a free will, he gives you the opportunity to make your own decisions, sometimes good ones, sometimes bad ones, but ultimately, he will care for you. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. There's many, many things. I'm getting better at not interrupting, by the way. My ADHD, that's why I take notes when people are talking, because my mind thrashes around erratically to want to join you in your points, but I'm getting better at it. Right. I think for me, the first time I started to believe, or at least give some mind to something beyond where we are, because it's a very scary thought to think that this is all there is. A very short flash of reality amongst 2 eternal abyss. You know what I mean? That would be a very, very dark thought. But I remember reading something out of Greek mythology where, historically we would envy the gods, and in those times there was the gods of Egypt and mythology and the sort of religious context that there was then.
Yes.
And they'd pray to Apollo and all this sort of jazz. And I remember reading the insight that we envy the gods, but the real truth is that they envy us because we're mortal. Because everything is more special, because it's doomed. Because me and Simon may never have this conversation again. Well, we will never have this conversation again on today at this time. Therefore, it makes it special, and it makes us hopefully appreciate things and be present.
Yes.
And appreciate the beauty and the presence that's all around us. My concern sometimes is if you think it's okay, there's an eternal place for me after this. Again, it's just the way I reframe things in my head. My concern was that people give disregard to where they are. And you see this, and we're not going to name any particular religions, but there's particular religions where people will use the idea that there is a kingdom in heaven for them, and that's not the terminology that they would use. And we've seen this in some acts of terrorism, unfortunately, in the last few decades. And they'll do an act under a belief that they're going somewhere to a better place and they will be celebrated there. Yeah. Now, again, this is a very, very minute percentage of the religious population, but it's always the few that spoil it for the rest. And that's why, For example, I think most wars around the world are caused by religion. That's probably a very, very harsh thing to say. Are they caused by it? I don't know. But it's a very emotive subject, isn't it?
Yes.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the centre of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show. Why do we disagree about religion so much? Because I think at their very core, the premise of most religions is very similar. I believe, and please educate me otherwise, but treat people how you want to be treated is effectively the tagline. I like to think, have faith that you have some sphere of control to treat people better, and collectively the rising tide raises all the ships of a better world. I like to think that's kind of the underlying soundtrack for it. Would I be right in saying that? Or do you think there is vast differences in some religions? No, again, we're not going to name particular religions.
There are differences,
Okay.
because I think it depends entirely on who you worship.
Okay.
But Jesus said, two greatest commandments is firstly, love the God with all your heart, soul and mind. And second is love your neighbour as yourself. If we lived like that, with those principles in mind, we wouldn't have the issues we have today.
I was going to say the element around, the first time I started believing in it was one of the first fatalities that I went to. The person was actually alive when we were there, and it was in a road traffic collision. And during a very lengthy process of us trying to extricate them from the vehicle, they unfortunately passed. And I got to watch them die. The role I was taking was quite close to this person physically, and I saw them die. And there was a very, very, and this will seem obvious to people, but there was a very clear and obvious difference between that person and then 10 seconds later, when they're no longer here. And something definitely wasn't there anymore.
Sure.
I remember when I was 16 and I went to see my cousin who had passed away in a car crash as well. I went to go and identify the body.
Wow.
And I'd seen him the day before. And I was like, that's not Daniel.
Yeah.
That's not him. Who he is, his essence, his spark, if you will. And again, some people would give the term soul to this. Something is not there.
Yeah.
And it made me zoom out into the world of physics and science, which perhaps is not the right way to go. But you can't destroy energy. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, that's gone somewhere. And I always think when you got a thermal imaging camera, and I put my hand on a desk and I take it off, and you can see energy has left me.
Yes.
And is now in that substance there. I'm speaking to you now. Energy is coming through my vocal cords, going into vibration down this microphone through the electricity, and you're hearing it many, many miles away. So I don't think you can destroy energy. But I don't know, how do you have a faith that it go where it goes, and what this life beyond where we are now?
To me, it's believing in God, believing in what the Bible says,
Okay.
Trusting what the Bible says, and trusting God. And that's how I, myself, am able to have confidence in today and tomorrow. Because God has gone before me. Whatever's going to happen tomorrow, as I said earlier on, I'll be given the grace to be able to deal with that. The strength and hopefully the wisdom. Yeah, we make mistakes, we're all human. But to me, and I can only speak for myself, I know that if I was to die tomorrow, and I don't know, I was on the deathbed. A week after my operation, I said to my wife, it'll be remarkable if he recovers. And I'm still here. Now, we had hundreds of people around the world praying for me. And those prayers were answered. Now, if I had died, in one sense, those prayers still would have been answered, because I would have been in heaven. Now, I haven't got a picture, but there's a picture of John White and Jane White, the founders of Firefighters For Christ. And Jane has got this wonderful smile, a beaming smile in her face, and John is smiling as well. Now, that picture was taken, if you see that picture, you wouldn't understand the story, but the background to that story is that she was diagnosed with cancer, which had riddled her body on Valentine's Day on February the 14th. And that picture was taken 2.5 weeks after that diagnosis and 1.5 weeks before. Now, the reason I believe that she could have that smile on her face is because she knew where she was going. Now, she had a t-shirt that said Bon Voyage. And sometime later I spoke to John and said, what was that message? And he said, she was going on a journey. Now, if she'd have been healed, and God can work miracles, he can heal anyone, he can raise the dead to life, they could go on a cruise. But if God decides to take her, she's going to heaven. So, that's the confidence that John had. And Jane, that she knew where she's going. She didn't know what the journey was, but she knew that God had control. To me, I want to die with a smile on my face, having that hope, knowing where I'm going.
Are you ready to die? Not do you want to die? Are you ready to die?
I'm ready to die. I think, as most people say, it's how you die.
I always think the people that aren't ready to die, it's either things left unsaid or things left undone. I wish I'd have told Simon this. I wish I'd have spoke to my mum about that. I wish I'd have reached out to my daughter one more time. Those things, and that's why I think it's so healthy to have a familiarity with your mortality and realize this is not going to last forever. We're not going to be here forever. I think, I can see it now written in on one of your PDFs, life is actually quite short. It says in the Bible, our days on earth are like grass. Like wildflowers, we bloom and die. The wind blows and we're gone, as though we'd never been here. Psalm chapter 103, verse 15 to 16. And I think it is so very short. It is but a whisper of a flash. And that just fills me with an insatiable drive to do the things that I want to do, to confront the difficult conversations, to have you ever read the 5 Regrets of the Dying?
No.
Oh, it's a wonderful book by a palliative care nurse.
Okay.
Really, really strongly suggest it. I'll put it in the notes for people. One of the main things that they speak about, there's a couple actually, and we'll go over 2 of them now. One of them was, I wish I'd lived the life that I wanted to live and not a life that I was expected to live. Mm-hmm. So, how many people are not living their life? They're not even living the life that they think their parents wanted to live. They're living the life that they think their parents wanted them to live, or that they think other people expect of them. Mm-hmm. And they're never truly doing the thing that they want to do. And the second one, for me, and it might help us come back into the context of the fire service, was I regret working so hard. Now, you can work hard. Mm-hmm. Work hard means you're passionate, you're interested, you enjoy it, whatever, you want to make a difference. But working too hard is unhealthy. They give an example of doctors, and first responders are typical for this as well, not taking all of their annual leave.
Yes.
Because they think that someone needs them.
Mm-hmm.
The fire service needs me. I'm a doctor. My patients need me. Simon's got cancer. His operation's in a week's time. I need to be here for him. I'm his consultant. Simon doesn't need you. Simon needs a medical professional. And if you explode tomorrow, someone else will take your place, and someone else will help Simon. Someone else. If I get hit by a truck this afternoon on the way to work, the fire engine will still roll out the door. Mm-hmm. Yes. Not because they hate me, not because they're bitter, not because they don't care. Because it goes on. You know, it was here long before us and it will be here long afterwards. And I always think that the only people that will remember that you stayed late and went in on the weekends are your children and your loved ones. No one else will remember. You know, and I try and use that context to encourage people to not end up pouring from an empty cup. You know, do the things that you enjoy. As you reflect on all of the work, I mean, you were in the fire service 31 years, weren't you?
Yes.
Incredible. Congratulations on a career, sir. When you felt as though your time for this world was coming to an end, was there any pertinent reflections that you had? I imagine there was many. It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefighters podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. But here's the honest truth. It takes a colossal amount of time, resources, the team, and work to keep the podcast going. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, improve the visuals, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. Now, by joining this, you'll not only support the future of the podcast, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Now, if you've ever wanted to meet a member of the podcast, buy us a beer, buy us a coffee, and you think anything you've ever listened to on the podcast has been worth £3, that's basically what we're asking you for. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behavior, firefighter health, cancer risks, incident debriefs, and so much more. A growing collection of valuable resources to help you learn and grow. Now, I've only ever featured 200 episodes of the podcast on every free public available platform. You won't find the entire library because it is inside our Patreon. That is the full library legacy, and that is what you're joining for as well. So by joining the Patreon for just £3, you'll unlock everything we've ever created alongside discounts on merch like our coins, our hoodies, our patches, our tallies, and all the other stuff we're trying to crack on with doing on the podcast. Your support in whatever way, dropping it in the WhatsApp group, sharing it on the local newsletter, whatever it is, it's incredibly valuable and we really do support it. And we need it to make it a long-lasting resource, that legacy resource we always talk about for first responders, firefighters, and everybody everywhere who's ever been interested in joining the fire service or who absolutely loves the job. Now, if you're already supporting something, as many people do, it's totally cool. You can still access the podcast for free and you'll always be able to access all the new episodes for free. But we're asking for your help to make this sustainable. You can still listen, you can still join, you can still share it with your community. And if you want to do something free, follow us on our YouTube, subscribe to it, rate us on Spotify, whatever platform you listen to. We've reached nearly 1 million people with the podcast so far, which is just ridiculous. And we want to keep growing, we want to keep sharing the insights, and we want to keep showcasing the incredible work happening in our community and our sector every single day. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. We'll see you on the other side.
Just going back on what you're saying, I think we need to live today. We need to have that compassion and that relationship and that friendship with people today. Because with cancer and with long-term illness, there's always this period where you're saying your goodbyes. You don't know when that final day will come. There's also times where, as you and I have seen many times, where there's no warning. And there's regrets. I didn't say this, I didn't say that. So, you know, in a sense, we should live every day with the view in mind that it may be our last. You know, I'm not trying to be morbid at all, but I'm just trying to be realistic. You know, when you say goodbye to your loved ones, you know, you expect to come back. Let's be realistic. But let's leave with a positive attitude.
Have you heard of sudden adult death syndrome?
Yes.
Or sudden infant death syndrome? Yeah, when I learnt about that, and I was listening to a book by Ryan Holiday, actually, and I stole this from him, where when I'm saying goodnight to my daughter, just before you close your eyes and a kiss on the forehead and I leave her room, in my mind, I say to myself, you might die tonight, which is very morbid, but it makes me go, try and bring 95, 98, 99, 100% of myself right here, right now, in this room, in the footsteps of where I am, to go, I'm here with you. It makes me cry nearly every time. Step out of a room and I want to cry. you know? But I think it's so important to feel that. Because it's not all taken for granted. We're not all here forever. And help me understand the context of heaven being a better place. Because again, to frame it with a joke, which is not always appropriate, someone saying like, you know, you get to the pearly gates and someone goes, is this heaven? And they go, no, you were just there. That was it. You were there for 100 years or 90 years or 40 years or 12 years, however long you live for. That was it. I prepared all that world for you. Yeah. And you kept thinking about getting here and saying this was better. You missed it. Silly, I know. But I don't want people thinking I don't want people not appreciating how great this is.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's right, there's something better next. Maybe not. Maybe this is it. I don't know. Help me. I know, and I love that you have the ability to have conversations like this with someone like me, and that's why I love that you wanted to come on, because I know you'd understand my context on this sort of stuff.
I appreciate you having me, Pete, and we all experience things. We're all on a different journey, but we're on this earth.
Yeah.
But this earth is riddled with pain, with sorrow, with trauma, with wars, with sickness and everything else. And that comes as a result of sin that Adam and Eve did in the Garden of Eden. Now, we talk about heaven, but I often say to people, we should be talking about the new earth.
Okay.
Because that's where we will spend eternity. Now, to me, the new earth is going to be very similar to what the Garden of Eden was like. So, the lion will sleep with the lamb. You'll be able to work, but you won't be sweating and toiling. It'll be a pleasure. Before the flood, there was no rain. There's no water. Just had this cloud, for better description, which surrounded the earth, which gave it a good temperature, a good condition, environment to live in. So that's how I think that eternity would be. There'd be no more toothaches. There'd be no more flu. There'd be no more COVID.
Do you think that brings in an element of appreciation, though? Because I always think, like, without darkness, we wouldn't appreciate the light. Without the rain, you wouldn't appreciate the sun.
Yeah.
Is evil necessary in the world, do you think? Because how would we appreciate the good?
Evil is in this world because of the fall from Adam and Eve.
Okay.
When they took the apple off the tree and Eve ate. And as a consequence, childbirth and thorns and weeds in the garden. I often reflected the other day, why is it that the weeds always seem to survive drought, but the plants and grass doesn't?
Weeds grow automatically. You don't have to water weeds, do you?
Exactly.
And I also think that with your mind, like we're tuned in for pessimism. Like it's a survival instinct, isn't it? No one, there's a rustle in the bushes. The person that goes, I'm sure it's just a squirrel. That person wanders over and gets eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. The pessimist that goes, that might be a saber-toothed tiger. They're the ones that survive. So generationally, I feel like we become more pessimistic because the serial optimists died. But it's so horrible to live. I wouldn't try and be a naive optimist, but I think I have an incredibly optimistic disposition. Incredibly. Perhaps even almost delusionally so. But optimists win more often because you're always swinging for the fences. Do you know what I mean? The pessimists are right more often, but the optimists, I feel, are good at reframing the world and trying to see the positives because they are theirs. They all seek and you shall find. If you look for bad stuff, you'll find it everywhere. Of course it is.
Indeed. And we're all individuals. We all get different characters. We all, it's the same as the church. Everybody is part of the body of the church. All different, some teachers, some preachers, some in the background doing the dirty work, and same as the fire service. You've got the people who are at the front, you've got the people who are training, you've got the people doing the admin. It was all part of the wheel, the mechanism, the engine that makes the whole thing work. But going back to your early question that you talked about death.
Yes, sir.
When that situation occurred, when a week after my initial operation, I was not there. But what did concern me was when we went to see the surgeon 2 weeks before the operation, and he says, until we open you up, we have no idea what we're going to find. We can only see so much on the CT scan. And they thought, because I was a firefighter, I was fit. It did help me, but I wasn't as fit as the surgeon thought I was going to be. But my concern was that they open me up, say, oh, what we got here, and close me up again. And that's it.
Yeah.
So I just said to my wife, Colleen, at the time, I would just give up. I had a successful fire safety business. I would give that up and I would just work and dedicate my life to working with Firefighters For Christ. Because I'm just, the message I've got, what we've been talking about, I want to talk to firefighters about this. Mm-hmm. I want to share the hope that I've got with other firefighters. There's a friend of mine who's a serving officer in Oxfordshire, and he has, I think he still does it, he has what they call donuts and disagreements.
Nice.
In the room and says, okay, I'm here for an hour slot. You come and talk to me about anything you want. And he just, whatever they want to talk about, religion or whatever, I'm here. You can disagree with me, but let's have a discussion. And I think that's what we should be doing. Open discussion. You might not agree. I don't agree with everything people say. Believe.
I don't agree with everything I say. When I listen back to some of this stuff, I keep rolling my eyes. I'm like, it was stupid. You said that, you moron. What were you thinking? But that's what I love so much about these conversations. And it takes people, we predominantly only have guests on with a high emotional intelligence. And I would, of course, say you're within that thing, because have strong views weakly held. You know what I mean? I've got some really curious points about all the topics that I speak to guests about, but do so in a respectful manner, in a place of psychological safety.
Yeah.
And I always think about this with marriage as well. Like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? What's your goal? Do you want to be heard? Are you seeking to understand? I always say you can't give what you haven't got. Like, are you seeking to be understood? Okay, then need to seek to understand that person as well. Are you just going to just flamethrower your opinion at them and give them the Alex Ferguson hairdryer treatment? I'm just going to talk at you now, Simon. I'm not interested in talking to you. This is the listening bit. And I just think we're struggling, aren't we, with the art of conversation and with difficult conversations. That's what concerns me most about the breakdown of relationships and communities and cultures and things of that case. But the thing is, even though I'm not inherently, I got married in a church when I used to be married. A, because I think they're beautiful buildings.
Sure.
B, I like what it stands for. Like, I always say to people, if you're religious or not, and I'm not religious, if you go somewhere on a weekly basis or monthly basis, and as a result of going there, you feel better, you're a more positive force in the world, you treat your loved ones, your family, your community better, it makes you a better person, then who bloody cares what we call it? When you've got your lucky socks, is that a placebo effect? But if you put them on and you feel better, put your bloody socks on. You're not hurting anybody. And again, I apologise if that's derogatory or condescending in any capacity, but when people get really emotional about religion, I'm like, why? Why does it bother you? The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Op Zulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways, as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about Hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Op Zulu bags are a game changer. So the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. Be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show.
You know, what I say is what's in my mind. It doesn't always come out in my actions. So, you know, forgive me if anyone sees me doing something that I said I don't do.
Yeah.
It was all human. But I just find that myself, it's not a case of talking to people. It's a case of journeying with them. So building a relationship, as we say, building a bridge. Because I think the biggest thing for me is trying to understand where they're coming from. Because sometimes what they're experiencing and what they're doing isn't because they want to do it. It's possibly because of their past, what they've been brought up with, what they've experienced, and that has a consequence later on. So by journeying with people, listening to what people are saying, then you're more likely to help them. Now, I don't always have the answer, but I say I know somebody who has got the answer, and that's God. So, you know, I will pray for people, either with them or for them, depending on the circumstance, situation. And, you know, even at the British Firefighter Challenge in Liverpool this past, in July, well, last month, spoke to a couple of people. I've been praying for them. And, you know, God provided healing.
Some people with some big struggles there. Some members of the audience that I've had long relationships with, and they brought their partners. One good friend of mine is his wife, gone through some horrific challenges over the past 6 months, and she was actually there. It was lovely to be able to meet her for the first time, and she was looking fantastic and healthy. But I know going there was a big thing for her with the treatment that she was going through. You said something there around nature nurture. Like you said, you were raised a Christian. You were raised in a Christian household.
In a Christian home, yes.
I'm most fascinated by people that would they term themselves born again Christians, or
they can do, yes,
converted Christians, or whatever they might phrase it. That's often most fascinating because I can understand the nurture bit. You know, that's all you've ever known. If since you were born, I said this shirt here is red.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, for people listening on audio, I'm wearing a white beige-ish type top. But if I've only ever told you this is red, yes, and you will argue someone to the hill that this is red, because that is what my mum and dad told me since I was a baby. This is red. But I also think that, and I think this when I speak to people about operational guidance and different thoughts like this, I'm like, what data would I have to provide you with, or science or research, to disprove your idea? Now, if no level of data, science, proof would disprove your idea, then it's not actually an idea. It's a whimsical internal belief. It's a narrative that you can never be torn from. And I think in some ways that's useful. Like if your own personal identity is I'm a survivor, I'm a hero, I'm a winner, I'm resilient, I'm a good person. And no matter what level of torment you cause on other people, you will always believe you're a good person. Then hopefully you'll aspire to be a good person. But I do think if nothing I can tell you would disprove your point, I don't think it's a logical point. And sometimes I use that in a religious context. But also, again, I say things because I'm just eternally curious, but I have to be very careful because some things get people very, very emotive.
Sure.
But I think they get very emotional if they feel like they can't explain their point. And that's what I love about yourself is you're very, very comfortable in yourself, in who you are and what you stand for and what you believe. When you see people rediscover or discover religion later on in their life, why do you think that happens? What is it that gives people that awakening, if you will?
There's a number of reasons, I think. Sometimes is contact with different people, experience, emotions. I think sometimes we face things in life where, like myself, you have this shot across your bow which changes your life forever. You think, what is all this about? I can say, yeah, you're in control, God, but I have no idea what God's doing. I don't know why. Why me?
That why me is big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be through friendships, through conversations, or it can be just something that triggers your mind. Some people have just walked into church. Now, possibly in the years gone by, they possibly went to Sunday school, or in school themselves had some religious education. But
Sometimes the messenger can ruin the message, can't they?
It can do. But sometimes circumstances in life trigger the mind to perhaps question. Now, it can work the other way. It can, certain things in life, because I'm not in control, I don't want to know you, God, because, some people with cancer or a serious life-changing condition can just say, I'm up with this. I can't cope.
Yeah.
I always say there is a way to cope. And, if I was talking to that person, I would say, let's talk about it. So there's different experiences. It can, just because you've been brought up in a Christian home doesn't make you a Christian.
No, I know some Jehovah's Witnesses who have come out of that community. And again, you'll have to probably help me. And I've got to talk about it if you don't want to, but I don't fully understand I don't know the differences in a lot of this stuff. I apologise. But my understanding is they don't celebrate birthdays and they don't do a few other things. And again, there may be elements of Jehovah's Witnesses. But anyway, this young lady came out of that community in her early 20s. And was very much shunned for it. And she's still religious. She just felt like that one was a bit too intense for her.
My faith requires me to do things, but it's not by works. It's not, it's not like some faiths where you have to do certain things certain times of the day,
pray at a certain time and all that jazz. Yeah, not eat certain foods at certain times.
Yeah, we have to.
Is there any definite don't do's? If I said, Simon, I'm a practicing Christian, what do you envisage my life entails?
Well, you're right, because I think I'll answer that question in a minute, but I think you're right in the sense that it says in the Bible, by your fruits you will know them.
Okay.
A Christian will have certain attributes. So, and I'll be blunt here. Alcohol's not a sin, but access alcohol's a sin. Or it's wrong, because you're out of control. You're not in your own mind.
Excess, did you say? Sorry.
Excess,
I thought you said access. Yeah.
Yeah, excess, sorry.
Yeah, alcohol's a funny one, isn't it? Because alcohol's a drug, and we all take drugs every day. But if I said drug, people wouldn't necessarily think of alcohol.
No.
They wouldn't think of caffeine either. They wouldn't think of a lot of drugs. It's a weird one.
Yeah, and I'm saying this, even the words we use and the approach we use. Mm-hmm. But again, we go back to what we talked about earlier on. You have to understand the journey the person's been on. Mm. Because if the person only knew about being drunk and the blasphemy and everything else was all he ever knew, there was a revival in Wales, and it changed the face.
What's a revival? Sorry, for people that aren't familiar, how would you term a revival?
Sorry, a revival is basically where the Spirit of God comes in and changes the community.
Okay.
Where people want to pray, to worship, and to be together. So you could leave your car and your house open, and there'd be no more theft. It just changes the community.
Wow.
Well, these pit ponies, after the revival, they wouldn't work because the language changed. So the language that they were using before, the pit ponies knew how to what to do and how to respond. But because the language changed, they didn't know what the language was, so they stopped working. So, but I've deviated here.
No, that's fine.
What we need to do is to understand where the person's come from. Because if that person's all they've ever known is what they're experiencing, they're trying to change, and some people take time to change. So just because you see someone doing things that aren't Christian-like, doesn't mean say they're not a Christian. If they continue to do that, then you'd have to question.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're trying to change, but they're just finding it difficult to, can't think of the word, to change from one character to another,
Mm-hmm.
then you give people time. So it's understanding where people are at.
Yeah, it's those behavioural grooves, isn't it? It's like a train that always runs on one track. It's got to have a big shunt to jump the tracks and change those habitual grooves of how we interact with people, how we conduct ourselves on a day-to-day basis. Talk to me about blasphemy, for people that don't understand what blasphemy is, and I'd partially include myself in that. Is that just generic swearing?
It's blasphemy is taking God's name in vain.
Okay, so it's not swearing. It's just, although
it's not, yeah.
One is also the same sometimes, but not always.
Yeah, it's
so taking the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very clear sin. You're basically slagging off the boss. It's not the way to do it, is it?
Yeah, it's not. When you consider we all shown mercy, we all shown grace, because we all have the air to breathe, the food to eat, we're living. So God is gracious and loving to us all.
Mm-hmm.
But those who are committed to serving Him, we're, as it were, adopted into His family, and He gives us extra grace. He gives us additional grace and additional help in our lives, if that makes sense.
It does make perfect sense. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading on to Drill Book, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, knots and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to JESSIP, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters, so you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show. I wanted to ask you around the role that this plays with our first responders and how, of the context of our conversation today it's Firefighters for Christ.
Yes, indeed.
How do we feel it plays a role in our first, because it is a very, very, very difficult job, not just for firefighters, for police officers, for paramedics, for doctors, care workers, anybody interacting with the worst of society. And I don't mean in terms always of the people's behaviours, but often just the situations that they find themselves in. We descend into chaos and try to create some calm and some peace within it. But we're not responsible for the chaos, but we are trying to fix it. We're trying to make it better.
Sure.
And you have to absorb a lot of that person's world and situation and empathy and sympathy and try to connect and build rapport with this person. It bleeds over, doesn't it?
Yes.
It bleeds over into us. How do you feel people having a closer relationship with religion in general or Christianity could potentially be a tool that would help them?
I think, like myself, it gives you hope. It gives you a focus. I've been a Christian for many years, but until I joined Firefighters For Christ, people say, when were you baptized by the Holy Spirit? When did you really feel that fire in your belly to want to serve Jesus Christ? And that really didn't happen until I joined Firefighters For Christ. That's what makes me feel privileged to have been a firefighter, because now I have contact with hundreds of firefighters across the world. And I think that the mission statement is to encourage firefighters to live their lives for Jesus Christ, and that comes from Hebrews 10 verses 24 to 25. it talks about meeting together on a regular basis, and that's what we do as chapters and groups around the world. It's just to be with each other. Now, I had a chapter which is the European chapter, which is the virtual chapter. So we have contacts all the way from England all the way to Australia.
Wow.
So it's impossible to meet physically. But in the States, where it was started, in Canada, in Northern Ireland, in the Philippines, they have what they call chapters, groups.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is these groups meet physically over a coffee, over a breakfast, because firefighters and food are very good.
Hell yeah.
Denominator. You don't have much food left when firefighters attend.
Got to break bread with friends. It's good. It's a social lubricant, food.
Yeah, and it's an icebreaker as well. The John White in these early days in 1975, they decided to have a breakfast, and they had thought that there's going to be about 40 people turn up to this breakfast. There's 140 people turn up. It's incredible. But it's a case of you're being there. You're talking about things. You're just walking on a journey with each other. So hopefully what we can do is just to be there, to be a punch bag if necessary, but to be a listening ear. Not, because I don't, like at the British Firefighter Challenge, we're not there to bang the drum about Christianity, about religion. We're just there to listen to people and to support people. And that's my passion, is to speak to firefighters, whatever they're going through. As I said earlier, I don't have the answer, but I know God does have the answer. And like I've had that peace, other people can experience that same peace.
You said about the origin of this and the religious context. St. Florian, was that Roman mythology, St. Florian? Because the patron saint of firefighters, St. Florian. We have International Firefighters Day,
yes,
which is also classed as St. Florian's Day,
yes,
every year. St. Florian got no connection to it, to Christianity? I apologise, I should know this. I imagine not.
I don't know either, Pete. I'm not a historian, so I don't know.
I'll try and Google it for ourselves in a minute. But I know that's something that people often refer to from a religious context.
Well, even with the Maltese cross, that is based on the Beatitudes, which is in Matthew, from the Bible.
It's May the 4th. So Florian was a Christian holy man and the patron saint of chimney sweeps, soap makers and firefighters. His feast day is the 4th of May, and Florian is also the patron saint of Poland, the city of Linz, Austria and Upper Austria. The May the 4th, many people will know as Star Wars Day, but we celebrate context of Christianity within St. Florian's Day, always denoted as a soldier pouring a sort of vessel onto a fire. I think he was a soldier originally and then converted into Christianity. And that's something, I know I've got a couple of really nice coins. There's a prayer of St. Florian, and I can't remember how it goes.
Every day is a school day.
Yeah, very powerful one. I wanted to ask you about life beyond fire service, because I think for me, the fire service, talk about this fire service family. I think for many people, the firefighting community may have become their new church. I think for some people it's local exercise groups, reading groups, walking groups, gyms. I think pubs are dead. I think people's church now is places where they can get counsel from friends and trusted ones.
Yeah.
But I do feel as though religion is struggling to find its place in the new world, if that's a bit too grand. But yeah, I think there's a lot of power and a lot of sort of self-awareness, but also support and a lot of positive things people can take away from belonging to a religious group. Have you seen the numbers of people sort of engaging in this type of thing rise? Has there been any clear indications for yourself and for the rest of the members of your community?
Certainly within Firefighters For Christ, we're seeing, not on a daily basis, but we are seeing the numbers increasing.
Wow. Great.
We've got we've got contacts in Sweden and Germany, in Romania, in Italy, in Moldova, South Africa, Zambia, Kenya, New Zealand. I had 2 new contacts in New Zealand and Australia, and that's sort of the area that I'm looking after. And even in this country, we go to different Christian events, and that's our shop window to be able to say, because a lot of people have never heard of Firefighters For Christ.
No.
Now, my goal, my plan is in the short while, in the not too distant future, is to write to the different fire departments in England to say, we're here. You might not have heard of us before, but
do you act through the chaplains that are in a lot of services? Are they also unaware of it? Like, is Firefighters Christ embedded within the church as well? Because that would be the obvious way. Because there are the chaplains in a lot of services, or I think almost in every single service, to be brutally honest with you. I know they still come in on inductions. Where the place I work, the chaplains come in and speak to people, but I've never heard them mention Firefighters For Christ.
No, in the States, as you're probably aware, they're very much more proactive.
Yes.
So even when the recruits have their graduation, Firefighters For Christ, along with other agencies, will share their wares, as it were. In England, we're not quite so proactive, with chaplaincy and everything else. And I think, we've only been established in Europe, in England, since 2020, since COVID.
Oh, wow.
So it's building that relationship, building that bridge. So what my objective at the moment is just to say to people, we're here. And, if anyone listening to this podcast wants to reach out to find out more, I'm always available.
Where can they go? Because we'll provide some links, but where can people go? Where can people find out more about you, perhaps see you or a member of the community at an event in the near future? Where's the best place for them to go?
I think the initial place would be to go to firefightersforchrist.org.
Okay.
The website.
We'll provide that link in the notes.
We haven't got anything set up for the UK yet. I'm not saying that we won't in the future. But that information would then come to me.
Okay.
And there is a Firefighters For Christ app, which they can download onto any mobile phone. Just put Firefighters For Christ, and I think that should come up.
I've got the links for that as well. We'll put those links in the notes. If people want to go underneath here, they'll see that. Thank
you, Pete. So, we're here to talk to anyone, to pray with anyone, to journey with anyone. As I said, I just want to reach out to all the fire departments to say, we're here. Some fire departments, I understand, don't have chaplaincies. Some do. But I'd like to, and I will work with the chaplaincy department if they're interested. I'll work with anyone.
I love that.
It's just a case of telling people that we're here and we're available if people want to reach out, and we can help them.
Mate, I absolutely love that. I really appreciate you sharing your journey and your story with us today. I want to be respectful of our time, but is there anything you think we've missed? Any closing thoughts? Anything you'd like us to circle back to before we look to close today?
I'm sure there's many things, Pete, that
I'm sure you'll kick yourself on reflection at times. We all do.
We all do, indeed. But there'll be another time. But
100%.
I just like to thank you for the opportunity to share my testimony, share about Firefighters For Christ. We're an organisation. We're not political. We're not here to bang the drum against what the politicians are doing and red tape. We're here to support, to encourage, and we all know people who are struggling. We hear on a daily basis incidents across society where people are struggling so much that they find life so difficult that they have to take action. And I've not felt like that myself. But let's talk about it. As men, but because we're multi-gender now within the fire department, but we're not on a journey on our own.
No,
we're together. And what I love about the fire service, and it's unique, I think that's why Firefighters For Christ is so well respected, because in the fire service we have a unique DNA. We can go anywhere in the world and we got that camaraderie, we got that relationship. And I've done ride-alongs in Los Angeles, San Diego and Vacaville, which is just east of San Francisco. Looked at fire departments in Italy and Romania. We have to understand that there's a lot of politics involved in these different fire services. So, you can't just rock up the station and knock, because some are still under the military umbrella. Went to Australia in February. Thoroughly enjoyed my visit there, meeting fire departments. I think they got 3 fire departments in Australia, and it's complicated in my mind. It's not just the one
enormous
number. That's
I think it's almost unimaginable. Unmanageable. Sorry, I've had quite a few guests on from Australia, and it's a funny old complex system. But
and I enjoy that. I enjoy traveling, but I enjoy meeting firefighters. But and me traveling, it helps me spiritually, but it helps me professionally as well. Now, I'm not in the fire service. I don't have a business, but I'm still interested. I've still got the fire service DNA in me.
Absolutely.
I just want to reach out to firefighters and just help them, support them, and give them the opportunity as well to have that international flavour.
Yeah.
Like the Institution of Fire Engineers, they dialogue across the world. Firefighters For Christ do the same as well. We do emergency relief, we do training, and we have a chaplaincy. And there's so much more that we could help each other with. Absolutely
agree, brother. Simon, thank you so much for your time. Please send my love to your partner as well, and to your family. It was a pleasure to have met them. We will put the notes in below here, so if people want to go and find out more, there's a website and there's an app as well. And I'd love to have you back on in the future, mate. As this is still very much in its infancy, I suppose, in the last 4 or 5 years, to see how things are, as people go through their challenges and you continue to support and help people navigate some of their own difficulties that they have in their life. I think it's a really important thing for people to have available to them who perhaps feel like they've maybe lost touch with their own religious identity, or perhaps something they hold very dearly, but perhaps they feel like they're a little bit alone. They may not be surrounded by people who share similar views. So hopefully this will reach, I know it will reach thousands of people, and people know that they're not alone, so they can go in there and find the details, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a privilege and an honour to share this with you, Pete.
You're a good man.
God bless you.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you are in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.